Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Low-Code Café, episode 79. Today's topic will be a lot about our JavaScript APIs and different ways to use the console in the browser to run these APIs, test these APIs, debug these APIs. But before that, let me give a brief overview of this event for new folks around. So my name is Bogdan Litescu. I'm the founder and CEO of PlantanApp. And this is a community event that we are doing every Wednesday at the same time, 10 a.m. Central Time. And it's a community event, meaning that we get to showcase upcoming releases. We showcase learnings that we discovered on the support channel. But also the largest chunk of this webinar, it's about doing some hands-on low coding, sometimes building entire systems, and sometimes showing a particular technique that you can use in low code. Sometimes we have guest speakers, so if you have any good content that you want to share with the community, we'd love to have you. And as you might have noticed, this event is being recorded, so then all past editions are on our YouTube channel. So make sure to visit, subscribe, because there's 78 videos just in this series, but we have other series as well. So there's over 150 videos. I think we are getting closer to that number of very good training videos. Cool. Okay, so the agenda for today is I will continue and give you an update about the product roadmap, about the upcoming releases, and then we'll hear from Dale Warner, our head of support, with some lessons learned in the trenches from the support channels, and finally Radu will deliver the largest chunk of this session, as mentioned, the JavaScript APIs and various tools and techniques around them. Okay, so let's dig in. Right now we are in the final stages of testing 1.19 in the beta stage. So far, so good. There are no regressions that we identify so far. So we are sticking with the release schedule, which means next Monday on the 14th is when we officially launch 1.19. So just as a reminder, or as a new thing for people that are new, this release is largely about creating the Bootstrap 5 layer in PlantanApp, the Bootstrap 5 UI. We still call it experimental because we haven't implemented all the features yet from our modules. But what we have pretty much works very good. So I encourage you all to get it and start experimenting with Bootstrap 5, especially as we made it to be able to do one page at a time or one entity at a time, to not roll it out to the entire system. So you can adopt it incrementally. Work on 1.20 begun already in terms of planning. So next week I'll be able to give you a much better update, because 1.20 will be about completing this Bootstrap 5 transition. But also we are cleaning up a lot of our code, because 1.19 will be the last release in the DNNSharp community. So now we are able to simplify the code a lot by removing the need for modules to work independently. So it will be also a major cleanup as well. There are many many obsolete features as well in 1.19. So we'll communicate that list. So then it will be useful to carefully go through the obsolete list, because most of them will be removed in 1.20. And these obsoletes, some are new in 1.19, but many were around since 1.18, and a few of them have been around for many years, marked as obsolete. So that's on the release front. And also I have an announcement to make, and we are very thrilled about getting to this stage. So Ben Santiago, that is our community manager. He's from the community. He just completed the feature request section on the community portal. So still a bit of testing to do and a bit of small adjustments here and there. But the plan is that we'll release it officially Friday during the low-code Campfire. So if you're not aware about the Campfire, it's another event that we are doing that is most like a community get-together. It's an open Zoom call. We exchange ideas and so on. Everyone is free to join, and I'm sure Dale will post the details in the chat. So I'm looking forward to that. It's still the first version, so we plan to improve it a lot. But I think for the first version, it will help us collect all the wonderful ideas and pain points that are there in the community, and prioritize them and gradually take them into the development team. So that's it from my side. I hope you enjoyed the content today, and I will pass it to Dale to deliver us the stories from the trenches.
All right, hello. Let me share my screen. Very good. So just a few things I picked out from the trenches of support this week. First of all, I've noted that Evoq 9.10.3, there's a 9.10.2 was out, I think, last week, and 3 this week. And this is a great thing. It brings that platform up from 9.6.1 to 9.10.2, which it means great things for our product as well. There's we need to we write to a kind of a lowest common denominator, and that has been forced to be 9.6.1, partly due to Evoq. And so as time goes by, then our minimums will and can increase. But I mention this because it's the first release in a while, and let's see, there's a nice map here of the releases, but the platform has advanced majorly from 9.6.1 to 9.10.2, and with that kind of change, there's probably there may be some bugs. We're already seeing some things being addressed in it, and so as always, I just advise that you test on a clone before you go into production. But that's Evoq. On our side, we've addressed issued some hotfixes this week, and that's a nice pattern we've been getting into, where we're releasing hotfixes week by week. So this week there are one in the updates section of our product, and this update section, this is where you'll see all of our hotfixes in the hotfixes tab, and one of them relates directly to this update section. So previously, sometimes hotfixes would be released by us and not be visible to you because they were only being read occasionally due to caching and for performance reasons. We no longer have to manually refresh the cache. When we release hotfixes, you're going to see them here, at least after you install this particular bug fix. So when you're on 1.18, if you're on 1.18, we encourage you to take these bug fixes. Another one was about dynamic containers, and this addresses something that was requested, both on our side in our implementation team, and was mentioned on the community forum. But the circumstance is that when you have dynamic containers and you're dynamically building the content of what needs to go onto a form, that a layout like this, where you had a list of items in one dynamic container side by side with a list of dynamic container, second dynamic container, you'd get a result that looks something like this. So instead of respecting the boundaries, this is one dynamic container, this is the other, and they were just all listed side by side. With this fix, you can now get a look that's something more like this, where this is one dynamic container and you have a stack of items in it and a second. And this was the original goal that was requested on that community forum post was, hey, I want to put things in line vertically and have it respect the boundaries that I set. So we've made improvements in that area, and hopefully that will help people who are using dynamic containers. So let's close that group. So that's the hotfixes. Before I move on, I'll just mention I did post a lot of things on the chat, as Bogdan had mentioned. So within that, there's the link to the community portal and also our feedback form. So if you have feedback on this episode, please click into that and let us know what you think. We're going to be talking about that feature request section in low-code Campfire. That's Fridays this same hour, and that there's a place to register in advance for that, and we'll send you a reminder right before the meeting that to join us. And then finally, where to go to the link for our YouTube Plantain app so that you can go and bookmark these videos for later playback. So that's all the things on the clipboard in the chat. A new thing that came up in the last couple of weeks, we've had clients that say, hey, I don't use this particular piece of Plantain app, for example, in Infobox, and make the decision to uninstall it. And we're recommending that you don't uninstall Plantain app components. Plantain app was designed to work as one big platform, and all of the components should be there. So removing one can cause issues on your system. So we recommend that you don't uninstall Plantain app components. And if you feel the need, let's have a conversation on support and make sure that we get it done in the right way. A couple of other announcement kinds of things. The DNNSharp product retreat that we've announced and been talking about since August. That the next date, the final date, is March 31st, which is end of support. Again, this does not impact Plantain app customers, but it does impact all of our individual modules except Action Form, Search Boost, and those related add-ons. So if you have those, as Bogdan just mentioned, we're coming up on the last release for those individual modules. And then a couple of promos. We've had some clients ask about generating sitemaps that you would submit to a service an engine like Google, and that certain pages, especially in our and an example of that would be in our detail pages of Plantain app entities. The pages are generated and they use an ID to determine what gets displayed. These pages don't index well within, they don't generate a standard sitemap well within DNN. And if you want to have those be indexed correctly within a service like Google, one solution is to generate a sitemap and use the API endpoint module to do that. So we'll be demonstrating that next week, and it's not a hard thing to do, but we'll demonstrate how to get it done. And then, we're talking about Campfire and the fact that we're going to be dealing with and showing the feature request sections. And I'm sure there'll also be some talk about what's going on in our beta test, the findings, and any resolutions that are making it into the product. And so that, plus whatever else you want to talk about, that's Campfire, a very interactive session. Okay, that is from the trenches today. So with that, I'm going to ask Radu to step up and continue with low-code development and talk about the Plantain app JavaScript tools and techniques. Good morning.
Cool, thank you.
Oh, checking in from, that's where I was last week.
Yeah,
I was there.
Nice place. Nice place. All right, let me share my screen and we can get started. Dale, if you don't mind to stop your screen share.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Thank you very much. All right, cool. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So today I would like to discuss a little bit about JavaScript and how we can utilize JavaScript in Plantain app. Some of you may know that, but we have the option to execute JavaScript on the backend side, but I'm not sure if this is going to be the topic of today. I just want to go a little bit through what you can do with JavaScript in the front end and how you can basically optimize and give your end user a better user experience. So that being said, what I'd like to do today is to show you how to open and close pop-ups of different components of front-end components as the form and the grid and the tab module. And also how you can filter, interact with the URL and, optimize basically the environment for doing that specific action that you are designing a specific page to do. So that being said, so let me give you a little bit of context of what I've done in preparation of this. So I have two entities created, one that I call random data and one which I call type. And with those entities, those entities generated automatically me the create with update interface. It's just some random information that I put here. But what I would like to do, basically the types are the second entity. But what I would like to do is that I want to create a page where I want to give the user the experience of filtering this set of data, but not using like, in this situation, the Bootstrap 3 filters or the Bootstrap 5 filters. I would like to create a form and I would like to interact initially with the grid, with the listing module basically, and use the form as my filter. So because using the form is going to give me a lot of more power, it's going to give me different ways of displaying the filters and giving the end user different ways of interacting with. So in preparation of this, I have a listing component and I have also a form component which I'm planning to use as my filter, right? So let's go and design a little bit our filter. So most likely what we'll need, so we already have the search option, and I don't want to go into this, but let's see if we can find a way to filter values that are numbers, booleans, or of a different type of an entity in this case, right? So let's see. Let's go into the filter form, right? And let's remove the placeholder that I have, and let's see. So what do we need for the value, right? So it's an integer number, right? So let's say I would like to do like a number field, right? For my active yes or no, I would like to do like a radio boxes, right? And for my type, I would like to do a drop down. And let's make it a simple drop down. We only have like 3 options, so we don't need the autocomplete one. I would recommend the autocomplete one when the set of data it's bigger. All right, so let's rename everything really quickly. So this is gonna be the filter for the value. This is gonna be is active, right? And this is gonna be the type, right? All right, let's see. Let's save really quickly. Sorry, and let's rearrange those like this. Let's put them in the same row. Let's click save and let's see how this looks until then. All right. One small change that I would like to do is to go under settings and choose the label to be at the top, and maybe even go with the material version of it. Let's see. Yeah, okay, something like this. Right, so the idea is that here I can only input numbers, and I would like to filter the listing flow with only values that are above my input. Is active, we'll have 2 options, is yes or no, and I would like to also apply this. And I also want the types to be of the type that are available from my entity, right? So let's go and continue filtering a little bit the value. So the value can stay as it is, but it's active. Well, it's active. We can do like yes, which is going to be 1, and no, which is going to be 0. I will also click horizontally to save a little bit of space. And I would like to do for the type, I would like to choose SQL select, and I will going to do select ID as value and name as text like this. So basically creating value pair from app.type. Right? So this is the entity that I have. All right, let's click it save and click it a refresh, and let's see how it looks right now. Right, so we have the value, we have the yes or the no, and we also have big, medium, and small, which are the types right now. Now, there's this automatic interaction that happens when the URL changes from a JavaScript perspective. So whenever the JavaScript changes, there's this option inside the listing components. I'm going to go really quickly on the settings, which is called sync with URL, right? So whenever you have this option enabled, whenever the URL changes, the grid will automatically try to refresh, and will not check actually if the variables in the URL that change it are designed for it, but we'll try to refresh every time. So I will start with like the easiest example of using the form with JavaScript of filtering. And to do that, what I'm actually interested in, and I will open a browser console. What I'm interested in is that we have this front-end API right now, which is under dnnsf.updateQueryStringParam, right? And you can see that different products, the components that we have this option, right? But we'll get that in a moment, because on the root we have something called updateQueryStringParam, right? And with this function, basically the option that I'm being given right now is that what I can do is I can update parameters inside the URL. Let me see if I can do this like this, right? So I can pass, basically the first parameter is like value, the name of the parameter, and the second one will be basically the value one that I want to pass. And I would like you to look here at the URL, and whenever I enter, right, so the value changed, and it tried to also apply this filtering part. We'll get in a second how we actually filter based on this. But what I'm trying to say right now is that if you notice, I didn't use a filter button. I do not have that right now, because from the start I was planning to do like in direct filtering option for me, right? So in this situation, what I can do is I can copy this JavaScript line that I have here, right? So this is basically me manipulating the URL and letting the listing module automatically identifies that the URL changed and tries to refresh based on the settings that I showed you earlier. So now that I have this line, let's go back into the settings of the form, and let's do something like this. All right. So let's go under value and go under bind expression, right? So what we can do here is basically put this JavaScript line here. But instead of having 4 as a value, what we can do is refer the existing field by just using its, right? So by just doing it like this, and we say value. So whenever the on change happens, this value is going to be pushed inside onto the URL, right? So let me click save and refresh really quickly, and let's see. 1, 2, 3, see? So whenever I type, the URL and the grid tries also to refresh. So what I would like to do right now is actually I want to do the same thing, but for all those 3 filters that I have right now, right? So let's do this. Let me go back into my filter form. Let's go under, okay, let's copy this really quickly. And let's put it for its active part as well, bind expression. let's go with active, and field name is active. Okay. And this as well, and let's go for the type. Expression. So it's gonna be type, and I think as well, right? So let's click save. Let's refresh the page, right? So what we have right now, whenever I type, the value changes. Whenever I choose, the active appears, and if I choose the type, I'm getting basically the behind-the-scenes idea of each individual filter, right? So I'm not only filtering the grid, but I'm also at the same time creating a shareable URL at the same time. So I made this page public. So in the end, I can share with you the page, and you can see basically whatever I filter, I can share with you to see the same filtering of the data. All right. So now that we have this and everything is pushed, before moving to the actual part of filtering the grid, what I would like to show you is basically there's a small issue, because if I refresh the page, I lose the filters that I had earlier, right? So to fix this really quickly, I will just not in the listing, but in the form, I will just do really quickly a trick. I will go into the initial value and say query string dot value. So basically, whenever the page refreshes, this is gonna evaluate with those value. The initial value will be the one that is shared in the URL, and it's active. I think it's active. But what I would like to do, if it's all right, let's leave it like this, and also do the same thing with the right. So now if I refresh the page, I will get basically the values that are happening here. Whenever I change, the value changes, and if I refresh the page, I still see the values from basically from a refresh to a refresh, or if I want to open a new tab, I'm gonna still have the same filters value because I'm sharing them through the URL. Now, as I said earlier, let's do something else. Let's move a little bit to let's focus right now on the grid, because that's really nice. We have those items here, but nothing's happening below. So if I go back into the listing component, you will see that I chose in this particular situation, I chose to have the data source as a SQL, even though I'm just doing a simple select of my random data and inner joining with a type. So I bring the name, but what I would like to do right now is basically do and apply the filters if I find them inside the URL, right? So to do this, basically, let's say I want all the entries where the value is bigger than at value, and the value itself is going to be a parameter, the query string value, and also an end where active equals active, and the active again will be active query string value like this. And we had the type, right? So the type and type equals that. So type and right. Oh, there. We should have this working right now. And let's click save and do a quick refresh. Maybe I will close the console. Whoops, I think I did something wrong. Change. All right, let's see exactly what my mistake is. Let's go under logs and exception. That's not really helpful. Let's see if I can figure it out really quickly. this one. There. Maybe the problem is cast as int. The value is passed as a string, so like this. And let's see. Yep. All right. Let's see. So is there any? All right. So I found I found the combination of those. So a value over 12 that is active with a medium type. And if I choose to no, I don't get it. Let's see, is there any big one? A small one?
By the way, Radu, that always is the favorite part of the video where we see you struggle or see me struggle and then recover. So is there a way that, for example, providing defaults or things might have prevented that as a problem? Or it was the cast that was the problem, right?
Yeah, the cast was the problem. The thing is that usually there should be an option to reset the filters, right? Leave it empty and see all the entries.
Yes.
And to do this, and it's exactly part of the default part, but usually what you can do is you can either go, you can say if there's no value, use 0, which is our default, so everything above 0, assuming that the values are positive. But then there's the situation with active, right? Which active cannot be empty, right? It's either active or inactive, right? So which do you default to, right? There are two options. There are a few options to do this. It's either defaulting this to 1, which is active all the time, right? And do the same thing in the form, or the second one, it will be to ignore and give a third option, basically, you know, like active, inactive, or both, right? And give basically the both option. So in this situation, what we can do, we can go with the both, and I can show you exactly how you treat basically an exception. And for the type, basically it's the same thing. If it's empty, you can assume that it means all the values, right? So let's do this to the form, and we can come back later here then to change this. So let's do the really quickly to the form, right? So it's active. Let's see. So we have Radu boxes, right? So we can say right, and we are gonna put the pipe, but we're gonna leave it empty, or we can do like -1 if it's helpful in this situation. And also for the type, we can what we can do is title when no selection. You can say all types, something like this. So that basically changes to, let me remove this, because now the problem is that every time that I refresh, the form skips the value, right? So and we should default to both, sorry, right? Filter form, excuse me a second. So the value should be defaulted to 0, not existing, and is active should be defaulted to both, which is,
oops, there you go.
Yep. -1, right? So now if I land for the first time to the form, I basically have the value is 0, the active is both, and all types. I just need to adjust really quickly the query behind the scenes, right? So if it's active, that means it's going to be -1, and if the type is empty, then I will basically do the trick here in my work, because it's either where this is active or active is -1, and that will bring all of the responses, and it's either where type is as a type, or the type is basically an empty string.
And before you go on, that active needs an E in your bind tokens.
Something like this, right? So it's either active yes or no, or if it's -1, bring all of them. It's either the specific type, or if it's empty, bring all of them. And the values, if it's empty, it's going to be 0. So it's going to be, will bring everything, right? So I think I have everything here. I hope. One second. My bad. Give me 1 second. And equals, because I was actually have an entry with 0, which I wouldn't think. Right. So now I can choose yes, no, both, and I can do medium, yes, and both, and I can reset everything, right? And
so just to summarize, I mean, you've demonstrated a great technique that I think a lot of people will use, the ability to have a filtering form that impacts the listing. And you've done it using just manipulation of the query string to get data up there and the data source to activate filtering.
Yes, but I would like to show you how to create a reset button using a little bit more JavaScript that I did until now.
Perfect.
I see that there's a question from Jim. Is there a method to hide ID values from the URL so the user could not just randomly start guessing ID values? Well, yes. There are some options to do this. Basically, there because the example is with JavaScript, I'm doing it by using the function of modifying the URL and so on. But yes, there is an option to set the variables instead of. Most likely, you'll need a button to apply the filters at that point. But you can save the filters in the user session and then trigger the refresh of the grid. And that will basically pull the information from the user session. So the filter is going to happen without the user even seeing what filters and everything that you are doing. Cookies may be another option, but the cookies are still available. There are add-ons to see basically everything that you need to.
You could also encrypt and decrypt. Use the same technique you've already done, but use some tokens to do some encryption. It would still be an ugly query string line, but at least you wouldn't be able to guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So there's an option. There are options to do this. Well, the idea is that even if I set it to 4, right? So I only have like 3, and I aim for it to be 4. At that point, you're not gonna get any data, because you're just guessing ideas. So if you want to mess up with the filtering system, yeah, sure, do it, but you're not gonna get anything from it. You're just gonna get, in this particular situation, you're just gonna get no data, or data that is not relevant on your filtering, right? So, but yeah, I agree. Maybe there are security contexts where it matters.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So let's see. First of all, let's do something else. Let's try to create the reset button, and let's do this. Right. So let's go to the filter form, and let's create a button, and let's say clear filters. Right. So we have a few options here. We can either do something like setting up the variable. Well, let me maybe show you the JavaScript option that we have in this situation. So the trick will be that we can either use actions, which are basically gonna do a server request, or we can use the front end to achieve this. So to do this, what I'm planning to do is basically go into the bind expression and use the give me a second, because I use this function of a string and basically set my 4 values to basically set the value back to 0, set the active back to -1, and also set the type to an empty value in this situation. So those are like the defaults for those 3 variables that I have. And also, in the end, what I want to do is, as you saw earlier, whenever I load the page, the values that are inside are in the URL are basically taken with the query string tokens and put it as initial values. So what I would like to do in this situation is that I want to reinitialize the form, basically say, hey, restart, reinitialize, and basically I'm reinitializing, I think it's the word. I'm resetting the form, but I'm also executing the initialization logic, including the initial values, right? So to do that, what we need to do is go with DNNSF action. Am I not on the? Oh, sorry, API form, and we have initialize form, init form, so basically, and it only has one parameter, and this parameter needs to be the module ID for the moment. So we have it here, convenient, and let's put it here. And by running this, we are basically resetting the form. I think I might need to save first, but this should be this should do the trick. Like this. Let's see where the button position is. Maybe we can make this a little bit more friendly looking, like this. And also, let's make the button to be a warning, full white button. And yeah, let's do it like this. Let's see how it looks. All right, so until now everything works. Small value, let's go with a 10 value, and small and yes, right? So we still have this, and if I click reset, all the values change in the URL, and oh yeah, and I forgot something. But yeah, basically the filter is resetted, but the page refreshed, which I do not want in this particular situation. And the thing is something like this. So let me explain for a second. So even though I am running the JavaScript code, the JavaScript code will always run before the execution of the actions, right? Even though I do not have any actions, this is basically executing before anything else will happen into the action execution. If I do not want the actions to execute, I need to do a return false statement, which is, I think it's mentioned here at the bottom. So whenever you only want a button to execute JavaScript code and you don't want it to execute the actions, just do a return false statement in the JavaScript on change of click section, and this will stop the action execution. The default behavior when clicking the button is to refresh the page. So that's why when I resetted everything, it executed my JavaScript code, but it also refreshed the page because that's the default behavior. By doing this, this is not going to happen. So let's try this again. So we said 10 active and small, right? And now I have the filters. Watch the URL. It's going to change back, and the grid is going to adapt back to it. So this is my clear filters. The thing is that the thing here is that you can create these kind of buttons to have predefined filters, right? It gives me everything that's above 100 with active and big, you know. So you can have predefined filters by doing this. The reset is just convenient to put everything to the defaults, but you can also make this work basically to have specific filters, right? So you can use this JavaScript part. Basically, let me clone this button and say important, and we can decide together. Basically, let's see. So first of all, it needs to be over 25 in value. It needs to be active. The type needs to be big. In this situation, I think I did 3, and let's say make this primary button. Let's see layout. Let's leave the clear button here and more important here. Not sure how it's gonna look, but should be fine, right? So I can click important, and I have basically 25 yes, and I think small is actually the third big one. Well, I mistyped the type ID, right? So that's basically how we can achieve like filtering for the filtering part. Now, usually from my experience, what happens sometimes is that the filtering, you're not just going to filter 3 columns. You usually will have a lot more of them, and the filter part is going to sometimes take a lot of space. So I had some situation where I had to use I had to make the filter be a pop-up. So why I'm mentioning this is because we have the option, and still with front-end API, right? We have the option to action form that we have the option to open a form from pop ID, right? So I have the option to bring the 397 component. I have the option to open it as a pop, right? So I have the option to basically have a pop-up appear, choose my filters, and then click either close the form, and whenever I close the form, the grid refreshes behind the scenes. So let's do this, and let me show you some different techniques to do this. So first of all, you may see the form looks not good. That's because we didn't let the form know that we wanted it to be displayed in as a pop-up. So I'm going to go under the settings, and I'm going to go under initial visible, and I'm going to say I'm going to be in pop-up. Your title is going to be filter the data. Let's make this a little bit wider. Let's maybe 600 pixels should be the trick. Edit this template and remove the placeholder in case, but we don't need a placeholder. You can see here that it's pointing out what's the JavaScript API in case we want to do this. So I'm just going to copy it from here, and I'm just going to say save. All
now
right.
that form is hidden until you need it.
It's hidden until you need it, and the thing is that I want this form to open based on a button in the grid. So I need to trigger it somehow, right? So I think the easiest way to be to have a root button and say filter, and say I want the button top left primary, and execute my JavaScript line, right? Like this. So this will basically do the trick in this situation. I'm not sure if this one actually requires the return false, but we can have a look. I think there's an option to have like client buttons, and like this, right? So now I can click save. I can refresh the page really quickly, and I have filter. And when I click filter, I get my form. But yeah, the form looks weird because I didn't prepare it to be like this. So let's go into the layout and do one per row. I think it's gonna be a little bit more user-friendly. So we have the value first is active type, clear filters can stay here, and important can stay here. Let's see how it looks. Okay, that's better, right? So I have now the buttons and the values, and I can click yes, and I can see that behind the scenes my data is changing, right? The question will be, do I need the data to change every time? Do I actually need it? Do I actually need this to happen at this point? Because look, I have a big pop-up form in my face, right? So I'm not focusing on the data behind the scenes. If I wanted to do that, I would leave the form at the top so I can have, a side-by-side top bottom view. So what I would like to do right now is I would like to actually disable the automatic synchronization with the URL from the listing component, right? So I can go to the listing and say, okay, let's disable the sync with URL. And now if I come back to the sandbox page, right, I can click filter, but nothing's gonna happen. The data is not gonna change because the listing is not actively watching the URL. But what I would like to do is whenever I close the form, I want this to, I want the filter to apply. So for this, we have another convenient setting, checkbox. Refresh when a pop-up or model is closed, right? So we can do this like this. This is convenient, but it's not really efficient. So I'm going to show you in a second how to actually achieve this a little bit more efficient. The idea will be that I can click on the filter, I can click show me only everything that's yes and close it. And when I close it, the data refreshes. The trick it will be to have, the idea it will be that this would also, the idea is that if you have this check mark on multiple listings on the same page, all of them are going to trigger. So that's not really efficient to trigger 10 refreshes of the listing components on the page just because one of the pop-up, one of the forms closed, right? So I would, it's useful if you have like this context where it's just one, which is, you know, plausible. But I would rather do it in a different manner. I would rather have the, let me see. I would rather have another button and say close and filter. Close and filter data, whatever. Let's see if I can find a place to it. Maybe I should make it like this, and maybe close and pop-up filter data. Let me arrange the button a little. So let's see, danger, full wide normal. Am I the right button? Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Warning, I'm not at the right button. Close filter data. A normal, danger, full wide button. And here, what I like to do is basically, whenever I close the form, which is filtering a specific listing, I want to refresh the listing, right? So to do that, what I like to do is basically say, and let me, oh, I have it here, right? So there's an type for that as well. Action grid dot refresh, right? And I can specify the ID of refresh, which is 398, I assume. Yes. And I'm basically refreshing the listing component. The idea is that what I'm showing here is like a more, you know, smart filtering, but you can use those tips, you know, APIs to achieve a lot of items, like of things, you know, maybe people clicking. The idea is that the JavaScript API is available not only inside our components, it's available everywhere. You see, I can run it from the console. So where was I? Talking too much. And I forgot my pretty button. So let's do apply filters and go to my JavaScript system. Don't forget the return false statement and rearrange those for a second. Fields, I think the apply filters button should be green in this situation. Success. And I left something, I left a mistake on purpose here. So yeah, I know filters, I have the same, and whenever I say both and I click apply filters, you can see that my data is refreshing, but the form is not closing, which, you know, either I can say apply filters, I see the data refreshes and close, but I usually want when I click apply filters to also close this filtering form. So to do this, I'm just gonna go back into my filter form and let's see where's my console, because I have the option of doing the API.action form close popup by ID, which is convenient, right? So 397 should be that one. Yeah. Let me close this. Let me be sure that this is the one. Yeah, this will work. So I'm just gonna go to the form really quickly. Click apply filters. And what do I want to do? I want to do the refresh first and then close the form, right? So now I achieved this. Right, so apply filters and everything refreshes when I want. and I'm optimal creating, because the idea is that by using the JavaScript, I'm not doing so many requests, and I'm also filtering the data whatever I need, but it's usually depending on the user experience that you want to give people. If you want instant, I would recommend using basically the sync with URL option. If you want it to be optimal because the set of data it's huge and it's gonna, borrow it's gonna explode the server or something, just do it like, I would rather do it like this. You can clear the filters, and I think the clear filters has some something, but yeah. In the end, what I want to mention, this kind of interaction you have in the forum in grid and tabs and tail, maybe we can do another session on this sometime. There are a few other things that I didn't got to share with you today, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
I think that's a real practical example of how to use those calls and to get a really practical thing accomplished. And again, we've spent maybe 40 minutes, and you have a full custom filtering capability built in. I just want to point out that one of our attendees, Mark, has said how powerful this is, and I will probably add this soon to Campfire. If you're not part of Campfire, you can contact us, and we'll let you be part of that. Just join that group. But the Campfire website has all these practical techniques, and I'm looking forward to working through this and building it myself, just to see exactly how it goes together. So that'll give you an example to look at and to base your filtering and those kinds of things.
Yes.
So it looks like you're cleaning some stuff up, Radu. What are you getting done there?
I'm not sure why I think something is, I'm not really sure why the page is refreshing when I click the clear filters button, but I'm not really sure what's happening there. Okay.
Well, very good. So with that, I think we're right at, is there any, I don't want to rush you, Radu, we've got a minute or two left. Is there anything else, or are you?
No, I'm just curious, when things do not work, it's that itch to figure it out.
Yes, I understand. Me too. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending today. Radu, you've done a great job, and we will get this posted onto our YouTube channel. So make sure and come and take a look at that. It'll have chapters and take you right to the spot of the presentation that you want to key in on. And we will be back again next week with another low-code topic. Thanks all.